I found happiness on the way. I found peace on the way. And in that, I just kept growing. And then my drive changed because I just wanted to become the best version of myself for him. He gave me these incredible talents, these incredible gifts. Even the negative stuff that people would say is negative that I grew up with was such a gift to me. I'm able to see all of the challenges, all of the stuff that seems like a crappy life stuff. I see them all as amazing gifts. And because of that, now I get to give that into this world and become this person that I know he wants me to become. So,
Markus Kaulius, welcome to the Comfort, Peace, and Freedom podcast. How are you doing today?
Ken, truly an honor to hang out with you, man. Love what you're doing. I know there's a ton of alignment with what we're doing, and excited to share this time with you, brother.
Well, let's kind of get into that a little bit. So, you're right. We do off camera. We were talking about kind of the shared visions that we have. I think my path is a little different. I took more of a blue collar path than what you did. Tell us a little bit about your very first foray into entrepreneurship, because I know that that's a word. I've said this so many times. People will say to you, and you've probably heard this too, Markus, oh, you're lucky you're one of those entrepreneur guys, right? And I'm like, okay, stop. Here's a piece of paper and a crayon. Draw entrepreneur for me, okay? You really can't. I mean, it's not a thing, okay? It's more of a concept surrounding or encompassing a bunch of characteristics that I would guess that you have, but they're all driven by something. These I call it like we talk a lot about persistence, resilience, initiative, faith, courage, vision, generosity, all those kinds of things. And what's important about those things is I think every one of us, Markus, has those things in our closet. They just need a reason to come out, right? So talk about maybe your first foray into being an entrepreneur. I don't care if you go back to you were 11 years old. What was that like?
I love where you're going with this, and I love when people talk about being that 30-year overnight success. And
yeah, right.
Guys like you and I, we love to hear about when people are right in the thick of it, but most people only want to hear it after the fact. Like, well, oh, you've got all this money. Okay, now I'm listening to your story. I'm actually such a huge fan of hearing guys while they're in it. And it's almost fun. I'm not a betting man, but I'm sure this is why people love the horse races. Because you look at people, oh, I put my money on this guy. He's got all the right habits. He's doing all the right work. There is your next super successful entrepreneur. That's fun.
Well, you're exactly right. And it's so funny because when people realize, and I've seen the light bulbs go off, I'm sure you have too, because our goals are aligned. Your goals and my goals are aligned. We've been able to become successful people, grinding it out. Again, my path is 1986 is when I started my company with 6 people. I think we have 200 now, and that's been 37 years or whatever. But and you're in the same scenario. So our goal in life now is to kind of turn around and say, okay, we did it. How can I shorten the learning curve on your ability to become an entrepreneur? Because that's what's so fun for me. When I go to work every day, I surround myself with what I call intrapreneurs, people that maybe aren't willing to go all out on their own, but they want to work with and through our organization and kind of run their own show. They work for themselves first and for me second. And that's the magic sauce here anyway. Tell us a little bit about again, your first crack at being an entrepreneur. When did you know you're like, wow, I think I can work this out for myself here? When and how did you know that?
I was really young when I realized I was unemployable. It's funny because my father was very much an entrepreneur, but there was just stuff he taught us in the times when he was around to just working for the man was not the good idea. And I looked up to my big brother so much as well, who was just one business after another. And he and I started a smoothie distribution business together. And I was just turned 17. And there were so many beautiful lessons I learned from it. I love the idea where you get to write your own story. You get to create your own path. That just did it for me. I hated the idea got to come to work, clock in, just do the same stuff. I love this idea like, hey, I'm going to be rewarded for the effort that I put in. And if I'm going to go above and beyond, if I'm going to learn more, if I'm going to put everything I have into this, I'll get rewarded in turn. And one of my favorite stories from that business. So we got the distribution rights for some smoothie. It was an incredible product. And one day we filled up, I had an SUV, we filled it up full of boxes. And then when we couldn't fill any more boxes in there, we started emptying the boxes and just putting the jugs in there. I was not leaving until that thing was 100% full. And the deal was, I was not allowed to come home until it was empty. And I mean, not a single bottle left. I was fully committed to saying, if there's one bottle left, I will keep going into store after store after store until I sell it.
Right.
And beautiful way to start off your entrepreneurial career. It's like taking away that safety net. You're like, I'm not allowed to come home. So I would go in with a very different sense of, I don't want to say desperation, but I had to figure out some beautiful way to get people on my team. And I was not afraid to say, hey, can you do me a favor? Here's the deal. I've got this vehicle full and I'm not allowed to come home until I sell it all through. Will you help me get home? And it's amazing how many people loved that story and were like, man, I'll help you get home. That's cool. That was the time that I learned asking a favor from a client. Most people are so hesitant to do that. No, I don't want to put them out. I don't want to ask you a favor. So there's a point in time where you can ask a favor and it will deepen your relationship so beautifully. Because you go in there not just asking and like, hey, just do me this favor. It's like, no. If you do me this favor, I just want you to know, I will live, breathe, and sleep to satisfy you. You will be my new best friend. What can I do to help you help me? And that worked. And I was able to come home pretty quick too.
That's amazing, because people listening to this are going to say, wow, Markus has an amazing sense of drive. And then I say back to them, okay, you're right, but there's another word that I want you to draw. Okay. Like, what is drive? What actually is that? Because you can't, it's a thing that, it's obviously a motivation, but as for every motivation, there's a reason, there's an exit plan, or there is a goal or a target that you have to be the reason to be motivated. So, you mentioned your dad. Did your dad create drive in you? And if so, did he show you examples, or did he lead by example, or did he give you, how did that occur in you at an early age?
You caught on something really good. I have major daddy issues. And I'm actually a firm believer that every human being on this planet has daddy issues. Even if you had a great dad,
sure,
I know you got it.
Sure.
I had a dad who wasn't really around, unfortunately. So he did set an example, but not exactly in the way that you would hope. One of the things he taught me about money, I was this science experiment in a few different ways, and I got to see really clearly the power of money. When my parents divorced, I was very young, and my father was just starting to do well in life. And so I got to watch this guy drive nice cars, hang out with women, live in beautiful places, have all the stuff he wanted. And then I saw my mom, who had nothing and had to go to school full time, work full time. Money was the biggest stressor, and it caused so much pain, so many tears, and constantly. I actually remember a time when it was hot dog day at my school, and hot dogs were 25 cents. And I was hesitant to ask my mom. I didn't ask my mom if I could have a hot dog because it was 25 cents. I knew it would stress her out that much. Now, I wasn't born in the 1910s, everybody, where 25 cents was a lot of money. It
Right.
was not a lot of money, but in my head, I was like, I can't add any more stress to this woman's life. So I saw money so good for him, money so terrible for her. Well, obviously, I need to earn money. And unfortunately, at a young age, that became an obsession to me. I did everything I could because I knew if I had no money, I was going to have that kind of pain. And if I had money, at least that pain wouldn't be there. Of course, there's a billion other problems with money, but I wouldn't have that kind of pain. So I was very fortunate. I learned that lesson, and it drove me hard. Like, I was always willing to put in the extra time. My buddies still talk about the fact, when we were 17, 18, they're starting to go to bars, they're starting to hang out at, people's houses. I was always the one putting in the extra time at work. No, I gotta earn. I got big plans in life.
And I think that's, I think, first off, great answer, because, I think what people don't realize is there are good examples and there are not so good examples. I wouldn't say that your mother was a bad example. She was an example to be learned from. I wouldn't say that your father was the greatest example, because he was an example to be learned from, right? So in either one of those cases, for any of you out there listening, understand that every example that you get is a gift. Every example that you get is something that you can learn from, which then creates the you that you want to be. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. In my world, we're talking about blue collar. Okay. In my world, we're talking about, okay, everyone's supposed to go to college. That's not true. Everyone has to get a degree. That's not true. The only way to make a living is to have a degree and a fancy a white collar job. That is absolutely not true. So you can see the evolution of where my growing up came from. It was always about doing something with your hands. And I love the fact, and I think this is the thing that most people don't really get. When you are an entrepreneur, one of the benefits you get is control. You get to control your input, which you were driving around like a madman with your SUV, right? You get to control the output of that, emptying that SUV before you come home. You get to control your day, your time, your schedule, how early you got up, how long you worked, how late you stayed out. And ultimately, you got to control your financial gain. So I think the difference in that, even though the work is hard, I think the difference is, in most cases, if you're in some office building on the 15th floor in a cubicle, you don't get to control any of that. So talk a little bit about how you felt once you emptied that SUV and or earned that paycheck. How did that kind of propel you forward from there?
Great question. And listen, I want to come to it, but I got to highlight something you said that was so brilliant. Everybody listening, I know Ken just highlighted it from something I said. Now I got to highlight it from what Ken said. You can take a lesson out of anything from anybody. And I think that's such valuable wisdom, because so many of us just go, well, I didn't have a good mentor. I didn't have a good example of it. That doesn't matter. In fact, I actually love teaching this to my kids. We started watching The Office with them at a very young age, probably young age.
Great show.
So we would pause it. I know, right? We would pause it and we go, what do you guys think of what Michael Scott just did? And of course, Michael Scott usually did it wrong. Those were great lessons. You don't just go, well, I don't have a good lesson of how to be a good boss. Okay, you got a bad lesson? That's just as valuable, just as maybe more valuable, because the cost of doing it wrong can be so great. And the win of doing it correctly, it won't usually outweigh the negatives if you do it poorly. So my girls would go, oh, here's what he did wrong. Here's how I would never do it. And I'm like, yes. So watch for those opportunities, everybody, whether good or bad, learn from it, set it in your mind. And this goes actually right into this answer of, how did I feel after I unloaded this car and was allowed to come home? Getting into that situation, it's not just as easy as like, man, I just got to sell this. I got to do whatever I can to sell it. You have to understand there's another key piece to this. I go, do I have the skill set to sell through this? Who do I need to become? What do I need to know in order to sell through this vehicle full of smoothie? And on the road, I was reading, no, not while I was driving, but each night I would be reading these books like Sales for Dummies, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Love that book.
Right?
Yeah.
Life-changing stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to put some of this into practice tomorrow. And then I'd try it and I'd make notes. That really worked. This should be part of my repertoire. Try something else. That didn't work. Cut that out. Don't say that again. And all of a sudden, by the time I came home, I not only had an empty vehicle, but I had a full mind of all these beautiful tools that I can reach for at any time, not just for selling stuff, but for how to have a relationship with people, how to develop a rapport with people. And then that just accelerated my excitement for learning more, for trying more. And let's go, go, go. Let's get to that next level in life.
It's such a great message. I mean, this is one of those pause, rewind moments, okay? Where pause what you're doing, rewind what we just talked about over the last 3 minutes and listen to that over and over and over again. Because so many times people will say, well, with you're the entrepreneur, you had a good idea. No, I didn't. I took an idea that was very well worn. I mean, the idea of digging ditches, fixing old wet, smelly, rotten basements goes back to the Egyptians. Okay. I mean, channeling water is nothing new, but the way that we decided to present it and the way we decided to sell it and the way we decided to gain the leads that we needed to go call on, all of that was the new part. And to your point, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to be an entrepreneur. You just have to look around you and let supply and demand be your buddy. I mean, what are people not doing in your town that needs to be done? Yeah. That's a simple question. Answer that question. There you go. There's an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And what's so funny is people say, well, how do you do that, Ken? Okay, go to Lowe's, look at the contractor wall, ask the guy who sells bulk stuff to all the contractors and say, hey, what's missing here, guys? Well, they'll say, hey, so lumber supply is missing, or delivery is missing, or painting is missing, or whatever, outdoor kitchens made of stone. Maybe that's missing. Plug yourself in. It isn't always going to matter. And I know you're going to nod your head to this one. It isn't always going to matter how you build the life you want. It's not always going to matter what you do for a living as much as it matters what you do with what you do for a living, right? Because in your case, you went from selling smoothies. I'm sure that you didn't wake up at 17 and go, oh my God, I'm going to be the greatest smoothie seller in the world, right? It was a path. It was one of your paths, right? On the way to many paths. So understand what's available out there, do what other people aren't willing to do, and then go make that happen. Tell me what your thoughts are on the whole supply and demand thing.
Oh, I just love everything you just talked about. And what a great call to action. Just to get people started on this path. I'm such a proponent of just start going down this path. Now, just to be clear, for anyone who's listening, this doesn't mean go quit your job today. Far from it. I love the side hustle. Start your side hustle today. If you're like, I kind of think I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur, but just start something. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to have the perfect plan. You just need to start down the path. You will change as a human being as you start walking. And did I want to be the best smoothie salesman? No, not at all. In fact, as I started to learn all this stuff, it also had me thinking, could I be doing something bigger? What else could I do with these skills? What skills do I now have, do I now possess that I can use for something bigger that I'll enjoy more? And that's exactly what happened. And I stepped into my next role in supplement sales, and I loved it. And then I stepped into something else, asking the same questions, because the further I got down the path, I collected more tools. I learned more things. I became a better version of myself that was capable of bigger things. So many people want to just sit back and just wait for this perfect idea. I'm just going to keep analyzing. Man, I couldn't agree with you more about what you said. Most entrepreneurs do not reinvent the wheel. Like, not even close. I want to say 99% don't reinvent the wheel. It's less than 1% of the Elon Musks out there who are just changing the world with their ideas. But guess what? Over 80% of entrepreneurs will go out of business in the next 5 years. So it's not the idea as much as it is who is behind it. How hard are you willing to work? How much are you willing to learn to become that successful entrepreneur?
Okay, so I mean, I wish you could have seen my notes, because that was the very next thing I was headed towards, which is so great about what we're talking about today. What I'm hearing and what I believe is that you could almost interchange the product when you have the right individual. And when that right individual is driven enough to do that, to control their own input, output, time, schedule, day, financial gain, all of that, their own goal setting. And so I echo what you're saying. You don't always have to land on the most perfect idea as long as you have a really good reason for doing it. And that's where I want to go before we get into your book, because I think your book is hugely important for this. So let's talk about how you saw your future. For me, I was a big brochure guy. I mean, when I bought my first Porsche, it took me 7 years. And I had a 7-year plan for a reason, because I was buying out a company and I knew it would take me 7 years. And I went into the Porsche dealership every year and got a new brochure. The guy thought I was nuts. He's like, yeah, right. You're never going to buy this car. Get out of my dealership, right? Year 2, year 3, year 4, I went back. I kept getting the brochures. And finally, he's like, you know what, Rusk? I actually believe you're going to start to do this. So, and it happened. It was 6.5 years in, I went and ordered the car, and I still have that car. The point I'm making is, we all see these things that we want for ourselves. And again, I'm going to caution, it's not the thing as much as it is the memories you create with that thing, whether it's a boat or a car or a house or a family or whatever it is. It's the memories you create. Tell me how you started seeing what you wanted your life to look like, and when did that happen for you?
In my early 20s, I really gave my life over to God. And before anybody tunes this out and thinks this is a preachy message, I really encourage people just to look outside of themselves and make sure that they understand there's something bigger going on than them. If the weight of the world is on your shoulders, if you don't believe that something bigger is at play, whether it's God or you want to say the universe or just something bigger, you are absolutely limiting how big of a game you're going to play. So for me, God had been knocking on my door for a long time, and I finally let him in. And when I did, it really started to change me. Not only did I accept the peace that comes with having God and having that bigger thing at play. So the stress of the world wasn't on my shoulders. I didn't have to do this or that. I didn't have to make this much money to be happy. I found happiness on the way. I found peace on the way. And in that, I just kept growing. And then my drive changed, because I just wanted to become the best version of myself for him. He gave me these incredible talents, these incredible gifts. Even the negative stuff that people would say is negative that I grew up with was such a gift to me. I'm able to see all of the challenges, all of the stuff that seems like a crappy life stuff. I see them all as amazing gifts. And because of that, now I get to give that into this world and become this person that I know he wants me to become. So I have such drive every single day, more today than any day in my life, to become a better version of myself tomorrow, because I know I can impact more people. I know I can change more people's lives. I know I have a much bigger game to play in this world. And a lot of that has to do with helping those next guys. And I know that's what you and I agree on, Ken, our purpose here. It's not just to be like, I've got money, I've got this, I've got that. Man, there's no fun in that. There's no joy in that. But man, I'll tell you, there's so much joy. There's so much fulfillment in now passing that on and helping someone beside you who may or may not have taken 10 or 20 years to get to a level of success, but they do it in 3. And they feel encouraged and they've got hope in them that it's like, no, I absolutely believe it's possible.
It's such a great message. And it's funny how you go through these cycles, because for me, it was about building the best life that I could build for myself and my family. I felt like to me, my mission was, I want to stabilize a group of people, my wife, my daughter, and live a great positive life, create a bunch of really awesome memories. Golfing with my daughter on the golf course is something I'll never be able to replace, right? Doing things like taking boat trips or even racing my cars with my buddies. Yes, those are physical things, but if you notice, I mentioned the memory that came along with those things. And I think the scorecard at the end of your lifetime is how many really cool memories did you create for you, your family, and your friends and other people? And B, how did you help other people along the way? To get them to be able to do those kinds of things, because we only have, according to statistics, 78 3/4 to maybe 90 years on this planet. You might also make them as absolutely cool as you can, right? So I think about that a lot. And I have this frame in my house, and it's one of those rotating frames that has all the pictures of the things that I've done. And it's right next to my smoothie maker in the morning. It's funny you call it smoothie, because I have this 8-ingredient protein shake I've been making for 30 years, and I've been refining it. But as I make it, and I can do this in my sleep, Marcus, I stare at this frame and I just have this overwhelming sense of gratitude. And I love starting the day with gratitude, because I look at these things and I smile and I go, holy cow. And I'm a guy that also, I say my prayers before I go to sleep at night, and I walk this earth knowing, he's up there looking down on me and making sure that I do the right things. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just think that's such an important part of our being, is to live that way. And generosity is a great part of that. I want to get to the book that you wrote. If you could just tell us a little bit about what got you to that point, because I never woke up wanting to be a writer. We talked about that off camera. It just happened to me. Okay. It just happened. I started writing stories, and there it was. In your case, did you wake up and say, it's time to do this, or did it just kind of evolve into that?
I think we have a bit of a similar story, actually. So I was doing fine. I had one of my bigger businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know me that well. One of my bigger businesses, COVID was so crazy. We had the craziest challenges, the wildest things I've ever had to experience, which I think most entrepreneurs would say about COVID.
Sure.
But there was a point last April, and I was in prayer, and God said, you're going to start a new chapter in your life. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I don't know what this means. But within a week, I heard him say, I want you to start writing your book. And so he wrote this book through me. And it was such a great experience, because it really wasn't my words. Like, this might sound weird for people who don't have God in their life, but I would reread these words. I'm like, oh my goodness, this book is way better than anything I could write. It was, and this book, it's called Play a Bigger Game, by the way. And it's about all the mindset tools that I picked up along the way that I just want to pass on, because I know anybody who uses these tools can have very similar results. You will get ahead in life. You will become a better version of yourself by using these tools. And I, of course, interlace all the stories of my career in there, and of my life. But it was such a cool experience, and I'm so excited to share this book with the world. It's coming out in April, and man, it's just gonna be fun to be sharing that.
Yeah, I remember the path that I took, and it's funny how you say people speak with and through you, because my daughter was actually suffering from a pretty serious illness when she was 12 years old, and it was a scary 5 years for her mother and I, living in hospital rooms and oncology offices and ultrasound rooms and all that kind of stuff. And you have a lot of time to think while you're waiting and waiting and waiting for these tests to be done. So she's fine now. I mean, she came through it great. And in fact, we had our first grandchild just last week. And so it was a very blessed occasion for a lot of reasons, beyond just our first grandchild. And I remember I'm going to write a letter to her about what we should be chasing in life. Like, what should you be after? Okay. And I just couldn't help but come up. These 3 words just wouldn't leave my mind, Marcus. It was comfort, peace, and freedom. And these 3 words were almost like in a triangle where they were interdependent upon themselves. And what I learned from that was, we're not all going to chase after mega yachts and McMansions and 15 cars and rap star careers. Okay. But every one of us has within us the ability to say, I know what my perfect nirvana looks like. Okay. If I could live like that, and I'm talking about spiritually and health wise and hobby wise and family, and even things like pets, what kind of dog or cat would you have? What color would it be? What would you name it? You know what I mean? Get down to the specifics of how you would want your life to look, including giving to others of yourself. Draw that out And then that is what you should seek. Okay. Step by step, path by path, and live the life that you want. I think if we can look in the mirror and say, wow, I've got true comfort, peace, and freedom, I think we can say that we've won the game. Okay. And and again, having spirituality in your life, that's like the overarching thing of all of this, because it kind of ties this whole human experience together. So talk a little bit about how you see that becoming the central focus of someone who wants to become an entrepreneur going forward.
Mhm. You know, this is beautiful. I think we're tying the whole episode together right now, Ken. You know, I think we all sort of go on a very similar path when you're on your entrepreneurial journey. Often the first stage is, hey, I got to get my family taken care of. Got to get me and my family situated. We need this much money to live this kind of life. We need this, we need that. But then quickly, as we start to achieve certain things and get those things that we were after, then the focus starts to shift. And I know it did for both you and I, where it's like, okay, we got those things. That wasn't quite as satisfying as I thought it would be.
Yeah,
Not
for
quite.
sure. 100%.
And just so everybody hearing this knows, you need to be prepared for that, because that can be a very hard time for people. And that's where, unfortunately, a lot of people turn to alcohol and drugs, because they're like, wow, I was really expecting fulfillment. I was sold this idea that as soon as I achieve this, I will feel so good. It doesn't work that way. That's not how it works. You will get to that, you will cross that goal, and then you'll go, oh, frick, now what? Why even set the next goal? It's just going to feel like this. You have to enjoy the journey. The journey is where you transform into the person you want to become to attain that goal. And then you have to recognize that. But what's beautiful is this next stage is to start pointing at others and go, how can I help others? And I'm telling you, that is where the juice is. That is where the real fulfillment comes, when you start pointing and going, I can help these people. I'm starting to recognize, I'm starting to see all the people who are just like I once was, and how badly I would have loved someone to have seen me when I was that age and said, hey, Markus, I can help you. Forget about using 15 years to learn that. I can help you in 2 to 3. Just come alongside me. And I don't need anything in return. That's my favorite part about what I do now, is I don't need the helping others is my reward. So I don't need to be like, well, I need this, this, and this out of you. I'm demanding this. I'm putting you into a slavery kind of contract. Forget it. I want to give back, because that is real fulfillment to me.
You know, and let me camp on top of that a little bit. So I believe that when whenever you give back, okay, and I've learned this because I've done charity work for a very long period of time. The difference is, instead of just writing checks and sending them across the world, I'm a big believer in time, talent, and treasure. Meaning, I'm going to give of my time and the time of my staff as well. I'm going to give of our talents, whether it's we can go cook for somebody or build something for somebody or whatever that might be, help them out. And also the treasure, which is obviously the money. I want people to know that, sometimes you go to these auction events where you bid on items and you say, oh, cool, I won the gift basket or whatever. And you're giving of your money, but you're almost expecting something in return for that. I'm not saying those auctions are bad. What I'm saying is, can you just try giving of yourself and not expect anything in return? Because when you have that attitude, somehow, some way, you just seem to get more. Okay. And I'm not going to prove that. And I'm not going to point at it and say, do it that way and you'll receive. But it just seems to have worked for us, that the more we give, the more we get, so that we can give again. And I think that's an important point that people miss a lot, because they're like, oh yeah, I bought this trip to Mexico at this auction. Did you really give of yourself when you did that? I mean, I know you gave of your money, but were you expecting something in return? So, and I know that's a little bit about what you're talking about in your book. Can you talk a little bit about how that message gets portrayed in your book and who the reader might be for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I just want to camp on what you just said for a second. The earlier you get into exactly what Ken and I are talking about, just start giving, Don't wait. I talk to so many people, and this is just common language. When I have this amount of money, when I have this amount of time, then I'll start giving. No, you won't. You have to start doing it today. It doesn't have to be the same amount as us. If you give $5, if you give 1 hour of your time, you will get the same rewards that we get. That's the greatest part. But you have to start doing it immediately and show your family. Take your family with you. Give that example to them. Because if you think you're going to, oh, when I get to here, then I'll start giving. No, you won't. Because when you get to there, you'll have other excuses waiting for you then. It's never enough. You will never have enough money. You'll never have enough time. So start today. Just start giving it. Now, to answer your question, Ken, my book, I'm really going after high achievers. I love working with high achievers, and even the people who haven't achieved yet, but know inside that they are that high achiever. There's something in them saying, should be playing a bigger game. I could be playing a bigger game. I just don't necessarily know how to play this bigger game in life. That's who this book is for. I want to help unleash that human being. I know that I had that in me at a young age, and it lay dormant for so many years. And it somewhat scares me to think I could have easily just let that thing go to sleep. I could have easily got caught up in drugs and alcohol and Netflix and social media and then just lived that life of someone who was just asleep. I was so fortunate that I was woken up. And so I want to help others wake up and go, you absolutely can. I 100% believe that every one of us is capable of huge things. Not everybody's going to run a multi-million-dollar company. No, but your version of that is available to you. And it's the best time in history to stand out because nobody's doing anything. Everybody's asleep. If you just wake up for 5 minutes and do 5 minutes of something to grow yourself, get yourself ahead, you will stand out like a sore thumb. You can write your own story starting today. You just have to make the decision today. It's so awesome that you're listening to this podcast. This podcast is growth. You're consuming it, but now take it and put it into action immediately. Take something that Ken and I have given you today. Put it into action so you grow tomorrow. So you start recognizing, so you start becoming that better version of yourself, and you can absolutely change your whole world.
It's such a beautiful message. There's another pause moment for all of you out there. Re-listen to that over and over and over again. And I love the fact that we keep adding to what each other is saying, because I will tell you this: if you have a goal that, let's say it's 52 weeks long, okay, and that goal, you put it out on paper, and it's something that you want to achieve, and you really believe in it, and you're trying to evade the fears and the anxiety and the frustration. What most people don't understand is if there's 52 steps to your goal, the absolute hardest, most unbelievably difficult step is the very first one. Okay? Because once you put your foot on that first stepping stone, the rest of it is just, can I just breathe and watch this thing happen? Can I just walk this path because I see the end so clearly? I'm beginning with the end in mind, which I believe is another reference back to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But the fact that you can see what you want, and it's that powerful, and you have that reward for yourself and for others if you achieve it, that very first step is the hardest one. Get beyond that, and you're going to be in such great shape. Where do people find your book? Please tell us again, when's it coming out? Give us the name again. Where can we find this thing? Because you are such an amazing person, and the energy that you bring to this subject is something that I hope people can just plug into, like they're putting a switch in an outlet in the wall. So tell us where we can find it. Give us as much detail as you can so people can get ready to order that for you.
Thank you so much. Ken, by the way, you and I, this has been a beautiful dance, man. I so appreciate this time with you. And it's so funny you would say that outlet thing, because that's exactly how my brother and I talk about it, is if you want to experience more of this energy, you have to plug into it like anything else. So there's a few things. One, the book is called Play a Bigger Game. And you can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all those places. The pre-order will start in the next, 6 weeks. So hopefully by the time this comes out, you can pre-order it. If not, come to playabiggergame.com. So playabiggergame.com is this beautiful community I've created. And it is just this give back, loving, supportive community of people who know they should be playing a bigger game and aren't exactly sure where to start. And one of the ways that I keep it so loving and so dedicated to service and only filled with people who are called to the community is we have an interview before you're allowed in. So if you want to come check us out, check out the website and schedule an interview. It doesn't mean you have to commit, but I'll have a conversation with you. There's a chance that it's even going to be me setting up that call because I want to see who's going to be in this community, and I'm that dedicated to it. I'm that dedicated to surrounding myself with big thinkers, of people who want more out of life and who want to support others to grow them so that they can also grow themselves. And it is an absolutely glorious and beautiful community. And I would love to invite you in, and you can plug in as often as you'd like.
Oh, that's awesome. So playabiggergame.com and look for the book coming up in April. Finally, with the last minute that we have here. So again, you heard me mention comfort, peace, and freedom earlier on. And I always ask the same kind of like lightning questions at the end of our shows. So if we're not talking about work now, okay, you can't use work at all in the answers to these questions. Where is Markus the most comfortable?
I really enjoy being on a beach. You know, I don't unplug a lot, but when I do unplug, I love just having sand in my feet, water brushing up against me, and just not thinking about anything, allowing some clarity to come to mind. And you know, there's actually something I talk about quite a bit now, is this idea that most people don't give even 5 seconds to allow our brains to think. Isn't that crazy?
Nuts.
We got 5 seconds and it's like, oh, hold on 1 second. Let me then just check my Instagram real quick. Some messages. We have no time to let our brains just go. And then we wonder why in the middle of the night, some of us wake up at 3 a.m. and our brain's like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's think about this. Let's go, 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 go. And it's like, well, of course, because you didn't allow that to happen at all during the day. It's like, oh, yeah, I know you're not going to pick up your phone and piss me off right now. Your brain is just enjoying that time. So I really want to encourage people, you know, find that peace, find the 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes of the day to let your brain just think. Don't go into social media. Don't pick up your phone. Don't check the news. Don't check your email. Just sit there and let your brain just wander. That is so good for us. And I know when I'm on that beach, that's exactly what's happening.
Beautiful. And then secondly, where do you find the most peace?
I'm going to try not to say the word work, but I honestly find the most peace when I'm helping lift someone else up.
Beautiful.
I feel so much peace in that because I know that's who I'm designed to be. I know I'm in alignment with who I'm designed to be and who I'm supposed to be on this planet. And I know that when you are in that kind of alignment, that's when you're going to find the most peace. Just being that person who you've been sent here to be. And just so you know, this world needs you to be exactly you, not some other version that you hope social media likes or that this world has told you to be, but exactly you.
And then finally, the last question, where is Markus? Where does he feel the most freedom?
I think on Sundays, when I'm spending the time with my family, we observe the Sabbath. We really take our time just unwinding, enjoying ourselves. Hey, you want to go for a walk today? Let's go for a walk. Hey, you want to get in the car and go to a beach? Let's go to the beach. I really find freedom when there's not big schedules. Because man, Ken, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, our schedules get so busy, and it just becomes, hey, we're used to like every day schedule. So when there's a day when there's no schedule, man, that's freedom. Markus
Kaulius, entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, fellow just motivational guy. I mean, I loved our conversation today. Author of Play a Bigger Game, soon to be out in April, so look for that. Thank you so much for being with us today, and all the best to you. I hope that we get to do this again, because I could do this all day. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming on the show today.
And it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for everything you're doing. That was beautiful to spend that time. I would love to spend more time with you, man. And thank you for the way you're sharing with people. Everybody who's listening to this, will you go rate this podcast somewhere? Because that goes so far for Ken. I mean, Ken's putting in all this work, spending all this time, and it's for our benefit. So the least we can do is go give this guy 5 stars, write a nice review so that it gets shared with more people. More people are drawn to Ken. More people get this wisdom. More people can play a bigger game in life.
Markus, all the best to you. Thank you so much.